Hey there, this is part 2 of my trip report from our recent vacation to Aulani, a Disney resort and spa. I'll talk about dining, how to meet characters, the luau, and the spa. There's a lot to cover, but I think we could do it together. You're listening to the Tomorrow Society podcast. Thanks for joining me here on the Tomorrow Society podcast for more info on Aulani, a Disney resort and spa, here on episode 69. It's Dan Heaton. I'm here once again to dive even further into our trip to Aulani. Last week, I started out with looking into all the planning, including booking flights, booking your room, reserving, dining, and then the overall atmosphere at the resort, the lobby, walking around, pretty much all the different activities and experiences you could do beyond some big topics. So I figured for part 2, instead of tackling so many different topics, I would zone in more. So the big one, obviously, is dining. Where are you going to eat? Are you going to get groceries? Should you use the nearby market or Target? Will you do a lot of sit-down meals? There's a lot of different options you can do while you're at Aulani, and a lot depends on if you rent a car. We did not rent a car. We thought about that maybe we would rent one day to do some excursions. A lot of our choice not to end up doing that had to do with the fact that my daughters are 9 and 6. We figured if they really enjoyed hanging out at the pool and the beach and just doing some activities around the resort, this isn't really the type of trip where we were going to try to go to Pearl Harbor and the Dole Plantation and the North Shore. We were fine being there, and it wasn't that we weren't curious about the rest. It was more just what fit for this type of trip on spring break. If you decide you want to venture out and have a rental car, I think it's pretty easy to go get groceries and do a lot of different things compared to what I'll talk about here on this episode. I'm also going to talk about the luau, which was a really cool experience. My wife went to the Laniwai Spa for a morning, and we met a lot of characters. So it's pretty cool to be able to talk some more about Aulani. I hope that you're enjoying this trip report, trying to give some good information, but also talk about my own experiences, because obviously every experience to somewhere like Aulani is different. I can only talk about what we did, and hopefully that'll give you a little bit of guidance if you decide you want to go to Aulani. If this is your first time listening to this podcast, welcome. This show is a bit different than the typical shows, which are interviews with authors, filmmakers, and experts that work behind the scenes at theme parks. So this is a little more about me and what I've been doing, which I do periodically. I've done that with Walt Disney World trips and with our trip to Marceline this past fall. I hope you enjoy this episode, and you should definitely check out some of the interview shows. I have plenty more coming in the next few months and beyond. So let's dive right in. We have to go back. Let's talk more about Aulani. So let's start by diving into some options for eating that are more on the walk-in, or if you were at Disney World, the counter service, or just a window, basically. Let's start with the Ulu Cafe, which is a place that you will likely visit pretty often. It's centrally located, closer to the pools, so it's very easy to get to. It also is the location of the Coke Freestyle machines. I talked about the resort refillable mugs during the first episode. This is where you go. There are a few other spots that have soda machines, but those are more your typical soda machines that give you a limited number of options. There's one by the Hawaii Lawn. There's another one near the pool and the shaved ice location. Both of those are fine, but really the Ulu Cafe is where you're going to want to go if you buy those mugs, especially for coffee in the morning. They have a lot of self-serve options. I will warn you, some of the standard fare, like your bananas, bagels, other fruits, are super expensive. Just way insane, which part of that is Hawaii, where food needs to be imported, and part of it is you're kind of at the resort, similar to a little bit what they do at Disney World resorts, but it seems to be on another scale given the Hawaiian upcharge. But there are other things there. One, they have Dole Whips there. They have vanilla, pineapple, or swirl. The great thing is, unlike at Disney World, there are not massive lines for Dole Whips, so it's very easy to get them. There's also another place on the beach that sells Dole Whips, so this is not the only spot. This is where I went several times to get them. It's just nice to have another option because at Disney World, yeah, maybe I'll get them once, but I'm not always in the Magic Kingdom. I'm not always in Adventureland. Same deal at Disneyland. So here, staying at the resort, it's more likely to get something like that. They also have what I feel like for families, especially with kids that are fairly picky, is pizza. There are different flatbreads at several locations, which are, probably better quality pizza. But what they offer after 5 o'clock till about 8:30 is they will make pizza to order with various standard toppings, probably on par with something like Domino's or Papa John's, maybe a little better. It's $20 for a cheese pizza and slightly more with toppings, which sounds like a lot, but compared to what you can spend on food, it's actually a pretty cheap deal. And sometimes when you're swimming and at the pool and such, it's just really nice to be able to order one. You can take it back to your room or you can eat it there. And it's just an easy way to get some food. And especially given that we had a villa, we could eat some of it and then have it in our room for later. I know it's really basic. It's not the most exciting Hawaiian food, but it can be very necessary and helpful in that regard. They also have different hot options each day and a decent amount of breakfast choices. So it is a place that, especially if you don't have a villa or if you're not getting groceries, that you're likely going to want to go to a lot. Another place that we ate at several times, which is the Off the Hook pool bar. Now, it's not a pool bar in a sense where it's in the pool. So I'd almost call it more, I think Disney describes it on their website as a pool adjacent lounge. It doesn't have the same ring to it, but it's essentially there is the large pool. You get out and then kind of step to the side. And really, I look at this as the bar next to Ama Ama, which is the, for lack of a better term, signature restaurant or fanciest restaurant there. But what I liked about the pool bar, one, it's very laid back. They do have seating areas away from the bar, so it's not like when we were there with our kids, we couldn't be there because it was a bar, especially early in the day. And the food was pretty good. I mean, it's on the pricey side, but they have things like burgers and wraps. They had a really good flatbread, some good tacos, a limited selection, but it was all high quality. They also had some different cocktails and local beers. It's a place where you can go and have a drink. Very easy, relaxed atmosphere. You can see the beach. You're not right on top of the beach, but you have a view from a little further away of the ocean and the pool. And you can also grab a quick bite that is not going to be your standard, just generic burgers and fries. It's a step above that. They also have salads, which is a nice thing to be able to avoid eating all greasy food. So we ate there twice, and both times I had a really good meal. It wasn't cheap, especially because we got some fancy Cool Blue Hawaii drinks. It was worth it. One other place that we ate from a few times while we were at the pool and just grabbing food quickly was Mama's Snack Shop. Now, this has a very limited menu. Basically, fish and chips, chicken tenders, some shrimp, and fish options. Not that much, but it works out well when you're up and about during the day. You can walk up to the window. It's not super crowded. And the fish and chips and chicken tenders, I mean, that's pretty basic food, but they're good. They were well done. They also have some dessert and snack options. And right next door is a very popular spot which is the Papalua shaved ice snack shop. And that's where they do shaved ice with a bunch of different flavors. They also could put Mickey ears on it. They could include ice cream. And I found, like the Dole Whip, it was not cheap, but it was more reasonable than I expected. You're kind of in the like $4 to $6 range, depending on what you get, which to me, compared to a lot of things we bought, was on the cheaper side. It's very good. People really flock to this spot, but it's still, as long as you're not going right when it opens or during peak times, you can get something pretty quickly. But having those two spots next to each other, there isn't a ton of seating nearby. So if you're going to buy something there, you're generally taking it back to another spot, to your chairs, maybe to the room. But it's right in the central location near the water slides and kind of tucked between the lazy river and then over near the large pool. So it's in a location that's very easy to get to and that you can grab a quick bite when you're having fun during the day.
All right, I'm back in one of my favorite spots, the overlook above, basically straight out from the lobby above the main grounds of Aulani. And I'm here tonight to talk about a restaurant that is right below where I'm sitting, which is called Makahiki. And basically, it's one of the two main restaurants here, along with Ama Ama. This is the buffet restaurant. I make it comparable to Boma. I think Boma is slightly better overall in terms of the quality, but it's pretty close in terms of the offerings and just how the setup is. It's a little more impressive with an indoor and outdoor section for eating than Boma. We ate 2 meals there. We had a dinner there. There are dinners that are not themed to characters. So there are certain days where its dinners themed to characters, some that are not. We did one of the character dinners with Uncle as the host of a show. I use the term show loosely, where basically Uncle goes around and he sings and he talks to people. He gets the kids involved. They do a little parade around with bananas. But then there also were 3 characters that were involved, which was Stitch and Chippendale. Now you would say, Stitch, really? But Stitch is so popular here. Stitch is everywhere. There is a statue of Stitch that often everyone takes pictures with. And obviously Hawaii has a connection through Lilo and Stitch, so it makes total sense, similar to Moana. And also Stitch seems to be really popular with Japanese tourists, which are a large group of the people who come here. And then Chip and Dale were a lot of fun. And all the interactions we had with characters at this meal were very good. And Chip even took my daughter's plate with pizza on it and acted like he was going to walk away. And she's still talking about it days later. You also have a photo at the start, similar to how Disney character breakfasts work at Disney World, but this is like with a character, and it's a different character, so we had a picture with Donald to start, and then those 3 characters came around to the tables, and the restaurant does a really good job, too, of coming to you near the end and saying, okay, did you meet all the characters? Did they come by? Which we had at the time, but it was still very effective. They also serve, it's not included in the price of the buffet, but additional like alcoholic drinks. I got a Blue Hawaii, which is a kind of fancy blue drink that was amazing. Basically, the food for the dinner was a lot of your typical kind of meat dishes, prime rib, pork, but a good variety of foods. They had a really good pesto pasta and breads and cheeses. For kids, they also have macaroni and cheese pizza and chicken fingers, so at least some things to do there. And then they also have some soups, and it's a nice spread. I felt like the food quality was solid. I would give that like a B in terms of quality, but the character interactions were good. It's not cheap. Neither one of these are. They're more than what you would pay, even, I would think, at some comparable. I'll have to do some research when I do the main podcast on how this compares to some of the signature character breakfasts at Walt Disney World, in case you're curious on that. I'll get all the numbers put in there for sure. Don't have them in front of me while I'm sitting out here at Aulani. And so now I want to talk a little bit about the breakfast, which is themed to Auntie. And Auntie, in particular for this one, was particularly good. She walked around and sang and was very interactive with the tables. And so her show was more impressive, I thought, than Uncle's in the evening. And it could just be they have different people playing aunties and uncles. I know this kind of burst the bubble of the single person playing either one. We've seen multiple uncles and aunties the same way. But this one was particularly good. And then our characters for this one, we did come in and take a photo with Mickey. And then our characters were Minnie, Pluto, and Goofy. We did have a real hard time getting Minnie to come over. And not that she was avoiding us on purpose or anything, but it's just the way the paths worked. But the restaurant was very good. They came over several times, and I even saw them. They wrote down on a list, and then we're reviewing them with Minnie, who then came to our table, and all the character interactions were very solid. They were pretty quick. In general, there's a very good approach to photos here with PhotoPass photographers, and then when they use your cameras, everything's just set up very easily. And I'll talk more in another segment about the character interactions and how easy it is to meet so many characters here, which was great for our girls. But I just wanted to say in general, I think the breakfast is better. It's a little cheaper, which is normal for breakfast, but they had a good variety of foods. Everything seemed solid. A lot of different types of sausage. They had some cool pastries for the kids. They had different types. They had a red velvet Mickey waffle, which was very interesting. A lot of pastries and French toast. They had a whole setup for omelets, which I did not do, but it looked very cool. Plus, some fish and some different things that you normally wouldn't associate all the time with breakfast. But I think it worked out really good. We had fun at both meals. This is one of those kind of splurge type meals, similar to a character breakfast at Walt Disney World. I mean, we had already met most of the characters, so this wasn't really about finding a chance to meet them. It was just meet them under a different setting and having them come to your table. So it worked out well. And if you're going to stay here, I would at least try one meal at Makahiki, especially if you have kids. I think the breakfast would be awesome, and the dinner, if that's something you prefer, it would be solid. It's worth doing. So I think both are good choices here if you want to experience a few of the signature restaurants here at the resort.
I wanted to mention a few more things about the food at Aulani. We did not eat at Ama Ama. However, we were right nearby when we were at the Off the Hook bar. The view for Ama Ama is the big draw, especially if you can get a reservation for sunset and possibly early in the morning when the sun is still rising. Those are the prime times. And then if you sit near the windows, the view is the draw. Now, I've heard the food is pretty good. It's also very pricey. I'm going to put a review of Ama Ama from Tom Bricker of the Disney Tourist blog in the show notes. In case you're curious, Tom always does a good job with his reviews, being thorough and fair, and has a lot of good photos. So that should give you a better idea of what Ama Ama is like. And of course, you can look online for menus and such. I think it's worth doing just for the experience. It's the nicest restaurant on property, so especially if you're not going to have a car. It may be worth doing, too, if you're not there on a family trip. This seems like a place that couples would go and have a great time. I also want to mention a less fun meal that we had, which was at Just Tacos. This is a restaurant in the nearby shopping area across the street. And I had been warned. I had a listener, Steve, who even described the food to me as inedible before we went. However, my daughters are pretty picky, and they do like Mexican food. My daughters are pretty picky, but there are some things at Mexican restaurants that they'll eat. So it seemed to be an easy choice. We also were going to go to the market over there, so it seemed to make sense. Why not walk over, have food that they'll like, and then quickly go to the market? And I was in there for maybe 2 minutes, and I knew it was a mistake. The service seemed weirdly laid back, and it wasn't super crowded because it was early, but the food was extremely bland. It was below kind of your standard Mexican fare and disappointing. Even I didn't go in with high expectations. I figured it'll be all right. It'll be, good. It was not. And it was just the whole vibe in there was strange. It's not a place that I would suggest going to. Even if you're into Mexican food, there's going to be a better option. And one of the restaurants right near there is Monkey Pod, which we did not end up going to. It was very popular the nights I walked by to go to the market, and I know they have very high marks from a lot of people, so that is most likely a better choice than going to Just Tacos, even if your kids are really into Mexican food. And I mentioned the market. That is one thing I had planned to likely take an Uber or a taxi to the Target, which is just a few miles away, to get groceries. Given that we had a villa, it seemed to make sense that I would really stock up on groceries to save us money and for convenience. I still think that would be a good idea. It just never really worked out. We were really tired the first night. I went to the market and got a few things like milk and other staples, and went a few other times and stocked up even more with fruit and a few breakfast items, and that worked out okay for us. It was enough where we were not going, and I wasn't going to the Ulu Cafe and dropping $30 every morning on breakfast. We were able to eat well enough and then start our day, and while a trip to Target probably would not have been that difficult, without a car, it still seemed like something that never really fit and would have been more of an effort. Plus, you do have to pay, obviously, to get there and back. So after I'd been in the market a few times nearby, I just decided that we were pretty much set, and worst case, I would go there again or we would make do. The Target option was always there. There's also a Costco right there. So especially if you have a car, I would recommend going to Costco if you're going to stay a week. That was just a case where since we didn't have a car and Costco's items are often a larger volume, we are members and go often here in St. Louis. It didn't seem like the best fit for us. But with a villa, you have pretty much any options that you're looking for in terms of how much or how little you want to cook. We didn't really do a lot of cooking, but I still really appreciated the space. And being able to pick up just even a few groceries saved us money and also made things a lot easier for us in the morning. So I also wanted to talk more about some of the entertainment at Aulani, especially the Luau, which is the big show that takes place on site at Aulani. I'm going to play for you two different clips that I recorded while I was there. The first one is all about the luau and gives a nice overview of our experience. The second one has a bit about music at the resort and what I like about that, and then dives further into some elements of the luau that I did not mention originally. So I'm going to play both of those clips in a row, and then I'll come back and give you a little more info about what really is a super cool, respectful, fun event that I would recommend if you're able to do it. Here's a lot more info about the luau.
As you can hear, there is some pretty loud music playing from the bar downstairs. I love it. I love the fact that you can be out here and it's this huge open area outside and you're able to hear music playing from the bar. You don't have to be there. It's just this outdoor area, and that kind of just sense of music and culture and everything is all over the place here at Aulani. And that makes me think about tonight, where I saw the luau here, which is a fairly recent addition. They did not used to have a full luau here at Aulani, and they had a kind of a smaller thing called the Starlight Hui, but now it's expanded to a full luau. And what I really enjoyed about it is just the sense of storytelling with it, where you never get the sense, it doesn't feel cheap. And I don't have a lot of experience with this. I saw a luau years ago, but it's not like a gimmick. There's a real story that they're telling, and then the dancing and the fire and everything is used to go along with that story. And there's also, it's not cheap, but there's a lot of fun activities. You come in before you even have the meal, and you're doing all these activities, and you're really just experiencing so much of, I hate to use the word authentic, but there's a real sense of care and detail to what's happening at the entire experience in terms of the beginning, where you're going in and getting to experience some older Hawaiian culture and activities, especially for younger kids like mine. It was a lot of fun for them. And then the buffet meal is very solid. It's pretty standard fare in terms of a buffet, but still had a lot of good choices, including a kids buffet and, a bar and just a nice selection there. But the main event is really the full show, where you have a brother and sister who host a story where we go through kind of the origins of this island and how the travelers came here. It's pretty spectacular, but not in a bombastic, cheesy, cheap way. It's not a case where you come out of it thinking, well, that was over the top and impressive, but you come out of it just with kind of serene feeling of, I really enjoyed seeing this, and it kind of left me thinking about a lot of things, while also having great music, dancing, effects, the whole deal. And I'm going to process this more, and I'll talk about it kind of back when I'm in town doing as part of the full trip report, but just I wanted to record this little piece to get my initial thoughts. Both of my daughters, who are 9 and 6, loved it and just were kind of mesmerized by it. And I had kind of read, like, there's a book, Oahu Revealed, where they talked about how it was boring. And I didn't get that feeling at all. I felt like it moved along quickly. The whole thing is a little over 3 hours, but that includes the meal and the activities early on and the show. The show was a little over an hour. It moved well. It was fun. They let the kids come up and dance at one point. There's a lot of different types of entertainment and presentation, so you never get a sense where it's not like you're just watching the hula for 20 minutes. I mean, there's a lot of different things being shown, and the talent of the dancers and the musicians is top-notch, as you would expect here at this resort and from Disney. I can't rave about it enough. If you're able to afford it, it's definitely worth it from my perspective as someone who hasn't seen a lot of other luau's in Hawaii. There is so much live music playing, and there's a mix. Some of the music obviously is not live, but it's just playing kind of similar to how the Animal Kingdom Lodge is, where you walk around and there's a lot of just background music. I mean, I've mentioned before the lobby where you walk in, and it's just a stunning way to encounter the start of your trip. And then every time I walked through the lobby, I was kind of equally just inspired by the whole experience. And as you walk around the grounds, there's music playing from various little nooks and crannies, similar to where it just seems like it's coming from behind the trees and whatnot. And then as you get closer to the beach, where you're actually sitting on chairs by the pool and everything, there's typical kind of Hawaiian or, island-themed music playing, not popular standards or songs that you would know. It's not that cheesy for the most part. Just kind of set the right mood. So all of that is playing. But beyond that, you also have every night at the Olelo Room, which is right near the lobby, is there are musicians playing from about like 6 to 10, I believe. And some nights it's been like pop music. I actually heard a Hawaiian group playing a cover of Kenny Rogers' The Gambler one night, which was not something I expected to hear. But then a lot of it on certain nights is more Hawaiian music. So it's a good mix of music there. And then at Ama Ama, the restaurant, which is near the beach, there are also musicians playing there. You have just a lot going on in that sense. And it's all kind of that laid-back style where it never seems like, it's never in your face, it's never too loud. It echoes off the buildings in a really cool way where it resonates everywhere. And the best example of that is the luau itself. And we ended up with our room basically overlooking, like we have an ocean view room. We're on the 6th floor, so we're kind of on the lower side, but we can see the ocean. We have some vegetation in front of us. But the benefit of being lower is our room overlooks the lawn, which the lawn is where multiple things take place, including the movie nights, which are 2 nights a week. The first night we arrived was one of them, which was Big Hero 6. The movies rotate every week. Like, for example, tomorrow we won't be here still, but Tangled is the movie. But then the Monday night movie was Ralph Breaks the Internet, which I was excited to see. The funny thing is that I actually watched it on the plane coming over, and so did my wife and older daughter. So we weren't as thrilled, but we didn't actually go down to the lawn because it was later in the evening. I mean, it was 7:30, but when you've had a busy day at the pool, it seemed kind of late. But we sat on our porch and watched a good portion of it. And that's the same situation with the luau. We actually did go to the luau this past Saturday, and it was awesome. I am not really sure what is really authentic, but it feels authentic. It doesn't feel cheap. It doesn't feel like, oh, here's some dancing and here's, some fire and all that. I mean, those are all elements to it, but it feels authentic and educational, and the hosts are a brother and sister. Now, I'm not sure if they're really a brother and sister, because as it seems silly to say this, because some people would say, well, obviously they're not. They're actors playing a brother and sister. But our hosts were so good, where I swear I came out of it thinking they were really brother and sister. But then we did see some other people playing the same roles in the future nights that didn't seem to have the same chemistry, at least from watching those from our balcony. But it's hard to say if they're really brother and sister. But regardless, the hosts are a brother and sister who both talk about the history of the island and some of the legends there. Also, there's a hula, but not the typical hula you would expect. When they're going back through the history, you have warriors who not only perform on stage, but also on the elevated platforms near our tables, which is nice when you're sitting a little further back. You have a wide range of musical styles and costumes and dancing, and it's all done at a really high level of quality. I mean, I watched good portions of it the other 2 nights from our balcony and still loved it. And I mean, the highlight is at the very end with the fire, and it's the story of Maui lassoing the sun. The men who can take fire, they're throwing it back and forth, they're swinging it around at a rapid pace. It's really stunning. I mean, I've watched that a few times. The drums are beating super loud, and it's a powerful scene. And the luau itself is something that I haven't seen anything like it. I once saw a luau when I was 18 in Hawaii that even I remember as feeling like we got on a bus and the whole deal, and it was a tourist trap. My parents, I confirmed with them fairly recently that they felt the same way, that it just wasn't what they wanted in this. I mean, my daughters, I wasn't sure what they would think, and both of them were enraptured by it. I mean, especially as we got near the end, there's one point when the kids come up and dance, and Mickey does come out, so you do have a Disney connection, but it doesn't feel like a Disneyfied version or something. I actually think Disney may have gone above and beyond. The show is fairly new. It wasn't there at the start with Aulani, to try and be more authentic and educational, just because obviously they're Disney, and it could easily be attacked for not being that way. It feels really legit, and it's something, if you're staying at Aulani, which already you're going to be spending a decent amount, I think it's worth it, because it's one of those events that it's going to stick with me for a really long time.
I hope you enjoyed all that information about the luau and some of the other music at the resort. If you're curious about the price for the luau, at least when I pull it up right now online, the general tickets are $139 for adults 10 and over, and $89 for kids 3 to 9. If you get VIP tickets, that's $179 for adults and $109 for kids. The thing about the VIP tickets is they do sell out really fast. If I look at the site right now for May and June, there are very few dates left with VIP tickets. The general tickets are still there. It's interesting that we had general tickets, but we still sat fairly close. But you do get to sit right up front with the VIP tickets. You also get complimentary alcoholic beverages, which can add up quickly in Hawaii, and early access to activities, which is nice. I would not say it's really necessary, but you can make the argument, well, it's already this much. I'm going to have X number of drinks. It's worth it. I think you're still going to have a great time regardless of which option you choose. One thing is with the general admission tickets, we did wait in line for quite a while to get in. So you do get early access with VIP tickets if that concerns you. It wasn't a big obstacle, just something to think about when you're talking about the luau, which as of right now, they typically do the shows on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturday nights. We saw it on a Saturday night. Obviously, that's subject to change, but that gives you an idea of when you're traveling, if it's going to work for you. And this is something you definitely would want to book in advance. Overall, I'm just glad we did it because generally I'm pretty budget conscious. So it could be easy for me to think, is it really worth it to spend this money on one event like this? But I think when I look back at our trip, it's definitely one of the highlights for a lot of reasons, not just for the amazing fire throwing, just across the board. There was a lot of cool stuff, and it was something that there's nothing I could compare to that I could see here in St. Louis.
I'm sitting here on the porch on our last night here at Aulani. It's been a great trip. This is our 7th night here. I wanted to hit on a few other things from the trip. One of the things that is really great at Aulani is the characters. And that's not something I really heard much about. I read it in a few blog posts, but in general, when you go to Walt Disney World and you're trying to see characters, yes, there are some cases where you can see a character without much weight, but it can sometimes be a challenge. And all of it is basically, they line up and they have their own areas and line up, and you go wait for what can be a significant amount of time at some of the more popular areas. Where here, it's not every character, but most of the time, you can show up and wait more than a few minutes. There are a few really popular characters that I'll get to in a moment, which have a bit longer lines. But essentially, every day, different characters show up in a few, 4 or 5 different designated areas. And there's a line you can call every day, and it'll tell you where they're all going to be. And I found that even there are more character experiences and more kind of drop-in characters than even you hear on that phone line. And most of the time we showed up, you'd show up 5 minutes before, or even on time, or a few minutes after, and we wait a few minutes. But it was never very much, and several times there was almost no one there. So let's talk about what characters are here. You have the Fab Five. You have Mickey and Minnie, Donald, Goofy, and Pluto. You have Daisy. You have Moana. The Moana character it was always the same person that we saw as Moana every time, and she was great. She interacts really well with the kids that she talks with. She also made a drop in to Uncle's storytelling around the fire one night and just really gets the character, but also isn't so locked in that she can't kind of adjust on the fly. And so there are meetings with Moana. In fact, the first night we arrived, we basically walked out of the lobby and saw Moana pretty much right away and took a picture. And there's also Stitch, who, like I mentioned in another clip, is very popular here. And you also can meet Duffy, which Duffy had possibly one of the longest lines of any of them we waited for. And then Shelley May, who was kind of our white whale for a while, and we finally met her today on the last day. She just wasn't around. And if you're not familiar, Duffy is the Disney bear that, if you haven't heard the story, Mickey was out to sea, and Minnie created Duffy so that Mickey would have a friend while he was out to sea. And if you've stayed at a Disney Resort hotel, you've probably seen that story, which they put on TV to read to kids at night over and over and over. But Shelley May is apparently Duffy's friend, and also is a character that you can get pictures with. And then there's also Chip and Dale. So there are quite a few characters that you can see here. And it's really easy to see them. Basically, a lot of times, too, we would just be walking somewhere, and there would be a line, not very long, or sometimes even we had a case where we were just walking somewhere, and they walked by and stopped and took a picture. It reminds me a bit of how Disney World used to be when I was younger, where you would just kind of run into characters. And this, while it was on a schedule, it definitely was something that was pretty easy to meet. And I'm not even including, there are a lot of set times when a bunch of characters come. There's some that are DVC only, but some that aren't, like at 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. There's also activities where the kids do on the lawn, but like a fake surfing thing, and then Pluto showed up. So there's a lot of flexibility, and the characters just tend to show up in a lot of different places, and it's super easy. I mean, my daughter's met all the characters, some more than once, and we didn't really even try that hard. We called the line, but a lot of times it wasn't like we were having to really adjust our day very much. It was easy to do. So if you have kids that are into the characters, I know there aren't most of the Disney princesses or some of the other people that are really popular. There's still, you can meet quite a few of the cool characters, and in a way that seems different and more intimate and less rushed and less hectic, and in a beautiful setting. So it all works out really well here at Aulani, and it's one of those kind of extra perks that just adds to all the other benefits of being here.
So I'm starting to wind down the second part of the Aulani trip report, but I have one more conversation to include here, and that is with my wife, Erin, who spent a morning at the Laniwai Spa at Aulani and seemed to have a great experience. So I wanted to make sure I got a chance to talk with her and get her thoughts about what it was like and what are some of the cool aspects of going to that spa. So here is my talk with Erin Heaton. All right. Well, I am here with the true mind behind the Tomorrow Society, the designer and the person who makes all of it happen. It is Erin Heaton. Erin, thank you for being on the podcast.
It's my pleasure, Dan.
All right. Well, you are here because you went to the Laniwai Spa at Aulani and spent a morning there. And I know nothing about the spa, so I wanted you to come here and talk about what that experience was like. So overall, what did you think of the spa?
This is a really, really nice spa. It's probably the nicest spa I've ever been to. I haven't been to dozens and dozens, but it's definitely one of the nicest that I've ever seen. I read that it's the only spa actually operated by Disney. I don't know if that's true, but I guess the other spas at other Disney resorts aren't actually operated by Disney.
So I know you were there for a massage, but it seems like part of the draw is all the other things they have there. So what were some of the things that you got to experience beyond the massage?
Yeah, they have a lot of amenities at the spa. Everything's kind of first class all around. I think part of what you're paying for when you pay for a service, like a massage or a facial service or something like that, you're paying for these amenities. So they have a steam room, they have a sauna, but what they really kind of promote are these outdoor grounds, this garden they have. I'm not sure exactly what the name of it is. Basically, they have soaking tubs and they have these weird showers. And it's all just this kind of peaceful garden atmosphere. They have lounge chairs out there so you can kind of just relax out there. And it's really shady and it's kind of quiet compared to the rest of the resort. And it's just a really nice kind of place to chill out. It's not poolside or anything like that. Different atmosphere. Yeah, they recommend you get there an hour early, an hour before your service, but I would say get there even earlier than that. I mean, if you think you want to use any of these, I would give yourself a few hours. It's all included, so they don't really care how long you hang out there. I would definitely use the sauna and everything before your service because it kind of relaxes you, and then you're ready for your massage or what have you. It's really, really nice. When you walk in, there's I don't know. It's Disney, so there's a story, and you go in and they hand you this basket where you choose a rock and it has an inscription on the rock, and that's like the mantra you're supposed to, think of while you're there and relaxing. My rock said harmony, and then you toss it in this little pond indoors. It's very Disney. But then you go and you get a tour. They take you around and they show you everything. So they just don't want you to miss out on anything. So they individually take every person and you will see all of the amenities. They make you a little sugar scrub, body scrub that you can take home. And then you're kind of, left to explore all the different things.
I know that the price of the massage and other services are, they're a lot.
It's up there.
But
it's not nothing. But, it's kind of like you're there, you're already on, island pricing. And I don't know, it's kind of, you have to turn your brain off and just, it's something to do there. It's part of the experience, and you're already, paying all this money to be in Hawaii and at Aulani. And the spa prices are not going to make or break you if you're already there. That's not really the time to kind of scale back and be frugal. That's just my recommendation. If you enjoy spas, I would definitely recommend it.
Yeah, and it sounds like, too, that you could technically stay there for pretty much the day and order food and take it easy, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think they do have lunch delivery if you want it, but you have to actually get a spa service. They don't have, I guess other spas have day passes and stuff like that. They don't have anything like that. You have to book a service, and it has to be a spa service. I don't think they also have a salon. I don't think the salon services qualify for any of the amenities. But yeah, I think you could technically stay the whole day there. I don't know if you'd want to. They have relaxation rooms and stuff. You basically would just be reading or taking a nap or something like that. That's about what the level of activity in those rooms is. It's definitely worth doing all the things if you're already there.
Yeah, for sure. What were your favorite things about this going to the spa and the whole experience?
Well, the massage I booked, they have lots of different kinds of massages, but I got the traditional Hawaiian signature Lomi Lomi massage, because when in Hawaii, you get a Hawaiian massage. And I would recommend that. I would definitely recommend that. I don't know. That's the only thing I did. I did try the steam room. I have asthma and I could not breathe in the steam room. So skip that one if you have breathing problems. The sauna was nice. The outdoor garden was really nice. They also have light food that's just complimentary, like fruit and some muffins. So definitely if you're there, take a piece of fruit on your way out. It's free. It's included. Food is expensive in Hawaii, obviously. So, grab it while you can. Also, I wanted to mention, I kind of stupidly got a very odd and patchy sunburn on the first day at the beach. So it wasn't terrible. It was just a little bit on one shoulder and then on one leg. It was just I don't know how that even happened, but I, was kind of a little worried about, I had this massage scheduled and after that, or I had it scheduled and then I wasn't sure how that was going to go with the sunburn, but the massage therapist I told her and she was super nice and she was, very careful around the sunburn. So they're pros. They know what they're doing. I would definitely recommend checking it out if you have any interest in spa services.
Well, great. Well, Erin, this has been very helpful to learn more about what it's like to go to the spa, which I did not experience, and I'm glad to have this insight. And thanks so much for making your first appearance on the podcast.
Thank you, Dan.
I hope you enjoyed this trip report from Aulani, a Disney resort and spa. If you like this format, you could also go back to episode 37 for a trip report of our Disney World trip in January 2018, or episode 53 for a trip to Marceline, Missouri. I also wanted to mention that the Tomorrow Society podcast now has a channel on YouTube where you can listen to all of the previous 68 episodes. And there are now videos that were taken on our trip to Aulani. There are 9 short videos that showcase some of what makes the resort just a gorgeous, wonderful, relaxing place. And the link to that page will be in the show notes of this episode. Also, a quick reminder that this is a listener-supported podcast. There are no sponsors. So one way that you can help to support the podcast is to become an official member of the Tomorrow Society through Patreon. You can pledge $1 or $2 per episode and get some very cool perks, including the monthly Tomorrow Society Bulletin podcast for members, where I talk about recent news and some other big issues about theme parks. You can learn more by going to patreon.com/Tomorrow Society. And I would love to hear what you think about this podcast. You can email me, dan@tomorrowsociety.com. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter @TomorrowSOC and Facebook or Instagram @TomorrowSociety. The Tomorrow Society podcast is hosted, produced, and edited by Dan Heaton. The music was written by Adam Hookey and performed by the Sophisticated Babies. In 2 weeks, I will be talking with Lou Mangello, the longtime podcaster for WDW Radio, and a lot more. It was a really fun conversation, and I can't wait for you to hear this show. And I have a lot more cool podcasts coming in the upcoming months for sure. Thanks so much for listening to this Aulani Trip Report, and I will be back talking with you again in 2 weeks.